Welcome back to This Life of Ours. Today I'm going to share with you some of my favorite resources for current events and news with the kids. When I was in upper elementary, the program I was in, we had current events on Thursdays and Fridays, and we watched a film strip, to date myself here, and we'd watch it and then we'd talk about it. And so my early memories are like the Iran-Contra scandal and savings and loans. That whole thing. I loved news from that point on. And so when we started homeschooling, that's something that was important to me to bring in. Now, we have news on a lot. I have NPR on the radio all the time. Not a lot of TV news, but news is a big topic of our home. So it was pretty natural then to incorporate it into our homeschool. And so I went looking for sources. So even though news is a big topic in our home and the kids hear news a lot during the day, I wanted to incorporate it in a version at their level. So the resource I started with was CNN Student News, which is now called CNN 10. I have a video on this. I will insert the link and pop it up in a card. Well, the format's changed a bit, but it's pretty similar. 10 minutes of news, drilled down to like the most basic details. I like it because it's a daily, either podcast or streaming. So every day they're updating stories that they've followed. I also like that it puts a global perspective on things, presents stories from around the world. So that is good, but it is more of a middle school, high school level, upper elementary-ish, depending on your student. So that was the one I went to first. The second one I found when I started looking for something that was a little lower of a level is called the Tween Tribune, and it's put out by the Smithsonian Institute. The thing I really love about it is that the same article, you can have a different version of it depending on your kid's reading level. So if you have multiple kids and multiple reading levels, like I do, you can assign the same article but have them read the version that fits their Lexile score, because that's how it's done, is by Lexile. You can have them do the same article. So then when you come back together, you can still discuss it, but everybody's read it at their own version. The Lexile level start at 500, but most of them are more like the upper 600 and up range. So that's a great resource for those of you who have more than one student. Next one I found was called Newsround, and it's put out by the BBC. It's very similar to Tween Tribune, except that it doesn't have the multiple levels. But both of those have the same general kind of topics. They put out 1 or 2 news articles a day, and some of them will be current event type stories, but then some of them will be more oriented towards kids. So a spin on a news story that kids would like. For example, if there's some kind of a dinosaur discovery that's made the news, they'll put that in. That type of thing. So, BBC Newsround, I forgot to mention all the links I will have below as well. Then the last two I've discovered are PBS NewsHour Extra, which is a middle school, high school level. So it would be a really good complement to the CNN 10. And the last one's called Kids Post, and that is put out by the Washington Post. For the ones that are specifically younger oriented, Tween Tribune, Newsround, and Kids Post, those only have a couple news articles at most a day. But it's a good way to start developing the habit of reading news. As for how I use it, CNN 10 plays when we are coming back together after lunch is over. I turn it on and we just kind of listen to it as we're gathering up and whatever. Then we'll do some chit chat about it. At this age, I am not concerned about a formal introduction to current events. as much as exposure, but for the other resources. If I see one that it's come across that relates to our history or our science or some other topic that we've studied, I will assign that for whichever child to read. Sometimes I will do the Tween Tribune and just give a general article and have my big two read it and then come together to discuss it as a way of starting to build that discussion and analysis of current events. I will also bring in, as we are doing for history, I will bring in news stories that we have heard, or if one of them has one on there, I will bring that into our history. And on the flip side, when we're listening in a car and we hear a story, for example, right now with Venezuela's unrest, we have recently read in our Story of the World about Venezuela, so I brought in that history to talk about what's the current events happening now. So I try to do it both ways, bringing our history into the current events and putting our current events into our history lessons. Same with science, or the kids happen to be reading a book that somehow can relate, that sort of thing. Like I said, right now with my kids' ages, I really am just interested in exposure and teaching them how to start piecing news stories together and how it all relates, especially with our history. CNN 10 does have a weekly quiz that you can give your child if you want a more formal thing. But like I said, that's really in middle school, high school level. So not going to be good for those of you with younger elementary kids. So there are some of my favorite resources for current events with kids and how we use it in our classroom. If you have a resource for news that I didn't mention, I'd love for you to leave it below. Always looking for new ones. Thanks for watching.